The conference hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive station orbiting the dead world of Threshkar. Inside, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table, their forms ranging from insectoid to gaseous clouds contained in suits. They had gathered for one purpose, to discuss the human problem. The Velkari representative stood first, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display. Images of human ships, stations, and colonies flickered in the air. "They spread too fast," he said, his voice translated into a dozen languages simultaneously. 50 years ago, they were confined to one star system. Now they have established colonies in 40 systems. They take resources without asking. They ignore our borders. They are dangerous. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The humans had burst into galactic space with an aggressive expansion that worried the older civilizations. They didn't follow the established protocols. They didn't wait for permission. They simply went wherever they wanted and took whatever they needed. "We have studied them carefully," another alien spoke, this one resembling a floating jellyfish with bioluminescent patterns. "They are emotional creatures. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. Their military tactics are predictable, copied from their own history of warfare. They rely heavily on supply chains that can be easily disrupted." The Velkari commander pulled up tactical displays, showing Earth's defensive positions. Their main fleet orbits their moon. They have stations at Mars and several asteroid bases. All of these positions are known to us. We have mapped every weapon, every ship, every defensive platform. They have approximately 2,000 combat vessels, mostly small fighters and escorts. We are bringing 500 capital ships, each one capable of destroying multiple human vessels. "What about their technological level?" someone asked from the shadows. "Primitive," the Velkari commander answered with confidence. "They use chemical rockets alongside their newer fusion drives. Their weapons are kinetic projectiles and basic lasers. They have no shield technology. Their ships are made of simple metals and composites. One of our dreadnoughts could break through their entire lunar defense grid." The council discussed for hours, reviewing intelligence reports and surveillance data. Everything pointed to an easy victory. The humans were overextended, spread thin across dozens of systems. Their homeworld was protected by what seemed like an inadequate defense force. Strike at Earth, eliminate their government and military command, and the entire human expansion would collapse. "When do we strike?" The question came from multiple representatives at once. "Our fleet is already assembled," the Velkari commander said. 500 warships carrying 50,000 troops. "We will jump to the edge of their solar system and advance in battle formation. When they see our numbers, they may surrender without a fight. If they resist, we will destroy their orbital defenses and force submission. 3 weeks from now, the human problem will be solved." The vote was unanimous. The invasion would proceed. Far across the galaxy, on a gray and airless moon orbiting a blue planet, Commander Hayek watched the same meeting through a screen. The humans had infiltrated the Velkari communication network months ago. Every word, every plan, every tactical detail had been intercepted and analyzed. Yuk was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in Earth's defense forces, rising through the ranks not because of aggression, but because of patience and careful planning. Now he sat in a command center buried deep beneath the lunar surface, surrounded by screens showing every corner of the solar system. "They think we're stupid," said Captain Minji, standing beside him. She was younger, with sharp features and the confident posture of someone who had flown combat missions since she was 20. "They actually believe we don't know they're coming." "Let them believe it," Hayek replied calmly. "Confidence makes people careless." On another screen, Director Taiyang appeared from his office on Earth. He was a stocky man who looked more like a professor than a spy, which had served him well throughout his career in intelligence. "The last of our hidden platforms are in position," he reported. "The asteroid belt is ready. Mars orbital stations are ready. Luna is ready. We've moved 90% of our actual combat capability into positions they don't know about." "What about the decoys?" Hugh asked. "Working perfectly. Their surveillance shows exactly what we want them to see. Old satellites, outdated patrol routes, and a concentrated fleet around the moon that's mostly empty shells and drones. They've mapped our defenses down to the last detail, and every single piece of data we fed them was designed to make them feel superior." Dr. Yunji joined the conversation from her laboratory station. She specialized in alien psychology and communication, and her work had been crucial in understanding how the Velkari thought. Their culture values rigid hierarchy and predictable strategy, she explained. They've won their previous wars by overwhelming force applied in direct assaults. The concept of deception or asymmetric warfare is foreign to them. They'll come at us exactly as their tactical doctrine demands. Tight formation, concentrated firepower, straight toward what they think is our command center. Hayuk stood and walked to the main display, which showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked where the Velkari fleet would enter. Blue dots showed where humanity's real defenses waited. We've been preparing for this since the day we met our first alien species, he said quietly. We knew eventually someone would decide we were too dangerous or too valuable to leave alone. We knew we couldn't match them ship for ship in open space, so we changed the battlefield. The Sol system is our home, Minji added. Every asteroid, every orbital path, every gravity well. We know this space like we know our own bodies. They're coming into our territory, and they have no idea what that means. Over the next week, the final preparations were completed. Automated weapon platforms, disguised as space debris, drifted into calculated positions throughout the asteroid belt. Hidden bases on the far side of Luna and in the craters of Mars activated their systems but remained silent and invisible. Human ships scattered to predetermined coordinates, waiting in the darkness with all systems powered down to minimum. Civilian miners and haulers in the asteroid belt received coded messages. They secured their stations and prepared to support military operations. Every human in the solar system knew what was coming. Children were evacuated to deep bunkers. Essential personnel remained at their posts. Everyone else waited. The Velkari fleet jumped into the outer solar system exactly on schedule. 500 massive warships materialized in the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit, their hulls gleaming with aggressive intent. They formed into battle groups and began accelerating toward the inner planets, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. In his command center under the moon, Hyuk watched them come. He didn't smile. There was no satisfaction in what was about to happen, only grim necessity. The aliens had planned humanity's end, but they were walking straight into Earth's ambush. Now humanity would teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating humans on their home ground. The Velkari fleet moved through the outer solar system like a spear aimed at Earth's heart. Their sensors swept the darkness, cataloging every human presence they detected. Everything matched their intelligence reports perfectly. Small patrol ships scattered before them. Defense satellites transmitted distress signals. It all confirmed what they already believed. The humans were unprepared and outmatched. Captain Minji sat in the cockpit of her fighter, one of 20 ships in her squadron. They floated near Neptune's orbit, waiting. Her hands rested lightly on the controls, and her breathing was steady despite her racing heart. She had trained for this moment for 5 years, ever since intelligence had first predicted an alien attack was inevitable. All squadrons. This is Luna Command. Hyuk's voice came through her helmet speaker. Enemy fleet passing Neptune. Begin Operation Chaos Wind. Make it look good, but remember you're not trying to win. You're trying to convince them they're winning. Understood, Minji acknowledged. She switched to her squadron channel. You heard the commander. Fly messy. Miss your shots. Act scared. Let's make them think we're barely trained. Her squadron accelerated toward the alien fleet, their approach deliberately clumsy. They broke formation too early, their vectors slightly off. When they came into weapons range, their fire scattered wildly, only a few shots actually hitting the alien shields. The shields didn't even flicker. The Velkari responded with overwhelming firepower. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness, and 3 of Minji's fighters took hits. But the damage was superficial, just enough to make them look disabled. The pilots sent out false distress signals and let their ships tumble away, apparently crippled. In reality, they simply shut down their main systems and drifted, waiting for the next phase. Fall back, Minji shouted over the open channel, making sure the aliens would intercept it. We can't hold them. Retreat to Mars. Her squadron scattered, fleeing in apparent panic toward the inner system. Behind them, the Velkari fleet continued its advance, now even more confident. They had engaged human forces and brushed them aside like insects. Their commander sent a message to the council. First contact successful. Human resistance is weak and disorganized. Proceeding to primary target. In his office on Earth, Director Taeyang monitored dozens of screens simultaneously. Each one showed different aspects of the deception. Fake communications traffic flooded the channels the aliens were monitoring. False evacuation orders, panicked military commands, civilian distress signals, all of it carefully crafted to paint a picture of chaos and fear. "The information warfare is working," reported one of his analysts. "They're intercepting our communications exactly as planned. Their tactical AI is processing the data and confirming their assumptions. They believe our main defense fleet is concentrated around Luna, protecting government installations and military headquarters." Taeyang nodded. "What they don't know is that most of those ships around Luna are empty hulls and sophisticated decoys. Our real fleet is distributed throughout the asteroid belt and beyond." Waiting in complete silence, Dr. Yoonji appeared on one of his screens from her station on Mars. "I've been analyzing their communication patterns," she said. "They're not even encrypting their tactical channels anymore. They think they've already won. Their commander is discussing occupation plans, not battle strategies." "Arrogance is a wonderful weapon," Taeyang replied. "When your enemy believes they're superior, they stop being careful." The Velkari fleet crossed the asteroid belt, and this is where the deception became critical. Human forces had seeded the belt with thousands of objects that looked exactly like ordinary asteroids on sensors. The aliens' sophisticated scanning systems examined each object and classified them as natural space debris. They had no way of knowing that many of those asteroids contained weapon systems that would activate on command. As the alien fleet passed Jupiter, they encountered more human resistance. This time it was a larger force, maybe 100 ships, that engaged them near the gas giant's orbit. The battle lasted 3 hours, and the humans fought with more skill than before, but still seemed outmatched. The Velkari destroyed or disabled 30 human vessels while taking only minor damage to their own shields. What the aliens didn't realize was that the entire engagement was choreographed. Every human loss was a ship that had released its crew in escape pods and then been remotely piloted into suicidal attacks. The real pilots were safely away, picked up by stealth recovery ships the aliens never detected. The destroyed vessels created debris fields that the aliens logged and then ignored, never suspecting that human forces were using the wreckage as cover for hidden observation posts. Minji and her squadron had pulled back to Mars, where they joined hundreds of other fighters in what appeared to be humanity's last defensive line. The base there was broadcasting on all frequencies, calling for reinforcements that would never come. The commander of the Mars garrison sent increasingly desperate messages to Earth, begging for support. The Velkari intercepted every message. Their tactical analysis concluded that the humans were concentrating everything they had for a final stand at Mars. The alien commander made his decision: bypass Mars entirely and strike directly at Earth. Once the human government fell, Mars would surrender without a fight. It was exactly what Hayek had predicted they would do. "They're committing to the direct approach," he observed from Luna Command, watching the alien fleet alter course. "They're going to pass within optimal strike range of our hidden positions in approximately 18 hours. All platforms report ready status," his tactical officer confirmed. "The asteroid belt has 3,200 active weapon stations, all disguised and silent. Mars Orbital Defense has 800 platforms hidden in moon craters and debris fields. Luna has 1,500 platforms in positions they've never detected. Every single system is powered down and waiting." Hyuk pulled up the tactical display. It showed the alien fleet's projected path as a red arrow driving toward Earth. Surrounding that path were thousands of blue dots, each one representing a hidden human weapon that the aliens had no idea existed. The entire solar system had been turned into a trap, and the Velkari were walking right into the center of it. "What about civilian casualties?" asked one of his officers. "Minimal. We evacuated everyone who wasn't essential to military operations. The people who remain are volunteers who understand the risks. Earth's population is mostly in deep bunkers that can survive anything short of planetary destruction. If we lose this battle, those bunkers become the last hope for humanity. But we're not going to lose." Captain Minji checked her fighter systems one more time. Around her, thousands of other pilots were doing the same. They had trained in secret for years, practicing in the asteroid belt and the outer system where alien surveillance couldn't reach. They knew every centimeter of the battlefield. They had rehearsed this operation 100 times. The aliens thought they were facing a scattered, panicked defense force. They had no idea they were about to engage the most prepared, most coordinated ambush in human history. Every miner, every civilian hauler, every apparently commercial vessel in the solar system was actually part of the defense network. The entire human population had become a military force hiding in plain sight. As the Valkyrie fleet crossed the orbit of Mars and accelerated toward Earth, their commander composed his victory message. In his mind, the war was already over. The humans had shown themselves to be weak and disorganized. In just a few more hours, Earth would be under Valkyrie control, and the dangerous human expansion would end. He had no idea that every assumption he had made was wrong. He didn't know that the humans had been reading his communications for months. He didn't know that the defensive positions he had mapped were mostly fake. He didn't know that humanity's real military strength was hidden all around him, waiting in the darkness. The trap was set. The enemy was committed. Now humanity just had to spring it at exactly the right moment, and Commander Hayek was very, very good at timing. The Valkyrie fleet crossed into the space between Mars and Earth, moving in their standard battle formation. 500 warships arranged in tight geometric patterns, each one positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire. It was a formation that had crushed a dozen civilizations before humanity. The aliens saw no reason to change tactics that had never failed them. Commander Hayek watched from Luna Command as the enemy fleet moved deeper into the trap. His hands were steady on the command console, but his jaw was tight. Everything depended on timing. Spring the trap too early and some of the alien ships might escape. Too late, and they might detect the hidden weapons before the ambush could be fully executed. Distance to optimal engagement range? He asked quietly. 30 minutes at current speed, his tactical officer replied. They're maintaining formation and accelerating toward Earth. No indication they suspect anything. Across the solar system, thousands of human personnel waited at their stations. In the asteroid belt, weapon platforms that had been disguised as rocks for months came alive, their power systems warming up in complete silence. On Luna, railgun batteries hidden in crater shadows began their targeting sequences. On Mars and its moons, missile systems loaded their tubes and calculated firing solutions. Captain Minji sat in her fighter, one of 5,000 now hidden throughout the inner solar system. Her squadron floated in the shadow of Earth's moon, their ships powered down to bare minimum to avoid detection. She could see the alien fleet on her tactical display, a massive red formation that seemed unstoppable. All fighters, came the alert through her helmet. Stand by for activation signal. When it comes, light them up with everything you have. Remember your training. Use the terrain. Use your speed. Make every shot count. Minji's hands tightened on her controls. She had flown combat simulations 1,000 times, but this was real. If they failed here, Earth fell. If Earth fell, humanity's colonies would be hunted down one by one. Everything rested on the next few hours. The Valkyrie fleet commander sat in his command throne, reviewing the tactical displays with satisfaction. Earth hung before them like a blue jewel, seemingly defenseless. His sensors showed the expected defensive positions around the moon, exactly where intelligence had predicted. A few hundred ships, some orbital platforms, nothing that could stand against his armada. All ships prepare for final assault, he ordered. Target the lunar defense grid. Once we destroy their command center, the war is over. His fleet tightened formation, preparing for the concentrated attack. It was exactly the wrong thing to do. Now, Commander Hayek said simply. Across the solar system, thousands of systems activated simultaneously. In the asteroid belt behind the Valkyrie fleet, 3,200 weapon platforms powered up and locked onto their targets. They had been drifting in the belt for months, indistinguishable from natural asteroids until this moment. Now they revealed themselves as humanity's first line of attack. Railgun rounds accelerated to incredible velocities, crossing the distance in seconds. Missiles erupted from concealed launchers, their engines burning bright in the darkness. The Valkyrie rearguard detected the attack only moments before the first impacts, far too late to respond effectively. 20 alien warships were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. The rounds punched through their shields because they came from angles the shields weren't oriented to block. The tight formation that was supposed to be their strength became a disaster as damaged ships collided with their neighbors, creating cascading destruction. Rear attack, the Valkyrie commander shouted in shock. How did they get behind us? Before anyone could answer, the second wave hit. Lunar railguns opened fire, not from the obvious positions the aliens had mapped, but from dozens of hidden installations that had been invisible to their sensors. The massive magnetic accelerators launched projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a capital ship in half. The aliens tried to adjust their shields to face the new threat, but that's when the third wave struck. From Mars orbital space, from the moons of Mars, from positions scattered throughout the inner system, missile volleys launched in perfect coordination, thousands of missiles, all converging on the alien fleet from multiple vectors. Captain Minji's fighter roared to life. Around her, 5,000 other fighters activated simultaneously, their fusion drives creating a constellation of blue stars. They had been hiding in the shadows of moons, in orbital debris behind communication satellites. Now they emerged like a swarm, moving with coordinated precision that the aliens had believed humans were incapable of. "All squadrons engage at will," came the command. "Break their formation!" Minji dove toward the alien fleet, her targeting systems locking onto a cruiser that was already damaged from the asteroid belt attack. Her weapons fired, adding to the hundreds of other strikes hitting the same target. The cruiser's shields collapsed and follow-up shots tore into its hull. Atmosphere vented into space as the ship began to break apart. The Velkari fleet was in chaos. They had expected a straightforward battle against an inferior force. Instead, they were surrounded, attacked from every angle by weapons they hadn't known existed. Their rigid tactical doctrine had no answer for this kind of three-dimensional warfare. "Reform the line," the Velkari commander ordered desperately. "Concentrate fire on the lunar positions." But reforming was impossible. The human attacks kept coming from new directions, forcing the alien ships to constantly adjust their defenses. Every time they oriented their shields toward one threat, another attack hit them from a different angle. The tight formation that had always been their strength was now trapping them, making it impossible to maneuver. Effectively, Director Tai Yang watched the battle unfold from his command center on Earth. The carefully orchestrated plan was working better than even their most optimistic projections. "The enemy is trying to retreat toward the asteroid belt," he observed. "Activate the secondary platforms." In the asteroid belt, another 1,500 weapon systems revealed themselves, these positioned to block any retreat. The Velkari fleet was now completely surrounded, trapped in a sphere of death with Earth at its center. Dr. Yunji monitored the alien communications from her station. "They're panicking," she reported. "Their command structure is breaking down. Different ships are giving contradictory orders. They've never faced anything like this before." What the aliens were experiencing was the fundamental difference between human and Velkari warfare. The Velkari had spent centuries perfecting their rigid tactical doctrines, creating formations and strategies that had crushed every enemy they faced. But humans had studied warfare throughout their entire history. They understood that sometimes the best strategy was to have no fixed strategy at all, to adapt and improvise based on what the enemy did. The humans knew every rock in the asteroid belt, every crater on Luna, every orbital path around every planet. They had grown up in this solar system. They knew how to use gravity wells to slingshot around planets, how to hide in radiation shadows, how to use the sun itself as a weapon by reflecting laser fire off positioned mirrors. The Velkari were fighting in unknown territory against an enemy that was fighting at home. Minji's fighter wove through the battle, dodging plasma bolts and returning fire. Her tactical display showed the bigger picture. The alien fleet was collapsing. Ships were breaking formation, trying to escape individually. But everywhere they turned, human weapons were waiting. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a slaughter. Yet Minji felt no satisfaction. She had friends who served on the decoy ships that had been destroyed earlier. Even though the crews had escaped, she knew that other pilots weren't as lucky. War was never clean, never simple. But it was necessary. The aliens had come to destroy humanity, and humanity was simply defending its home. A capital ship loomed in front of her, its weapons tracking her fighter. She dove toward Luna's surface using the moon's gravity to whip around at speeds that would have torn a Velkari ship apart. Human fighters were built for this kind of extreme maneuvering. Human pilots trained their whole lives to handle it. She came up behind the capital ship and fired her main weapon directly into its engine section. The explosion lit up the lunar surface. One more enemy ship gone. Commander Hyuk allowed himself a small breath of relief. The ambush had worked. The enemy was broken. But the battle wasn't over yet, and he knew that the hardest part was still to come. preventing any alien ship from escaping to warn their homeworlds about what had really happened here. The battle had been raging for 6 hours and the Velkari fleet was dying. What had started as 500 warships was now barely 300, and that number was dropping by the minute. Debris fields marked where proud alien vessels had been torn apart by human weapons. The darkness of space was lit by explosions and the flash of energy weapons. The Velkari commander stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Everything they had been told about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive, emotional creatures making panicked decisions. These were calculating predators who had turned their entire home system into a weapon and then waited patiently for their prey to walk into it. All ships, retreat to the outer system, he ordered, his voice hollow with shock. Emergency jump as soon as we clear the gravity well. We must warn the Dominion. But the humans had planned for this too. Commander Hayuk watched the alien fleet trying to organize a retreat. They're running, he observed calmly. Don't let them. I want every ship that entered this system either destroyed or captured. If even one escapes, they'll know how we fought. They'll adapt. We can't allow that. Orders flashed across the command network. Human forces that had been holding back now surged forward. The pursuit squadrons, fresh and fully armed, launched from hidden bases throughout the system. Captain Minji's squadron was among them. All fighters begin pursuit operations, came the command. Drive them toward the asteroid belt. The mining crews are waiting. Minji accelerated after the fleeing alien ships, her fighter's fusion drive pushing her to speeds that made the stars streak past her canopy. Around her, thousands of other fighters formed a net, herding the Velkari vessels away from clear escape routes and toward areas where human forces were strongest. The aliens tried to fight their way out, but they were exhausted and damaged while the human forces were fresh. More importantly, the humans knew where they were going. Every asteroid, every hidden base, every ambush point had been prepared months in advance. The Velkari were running blindly into territory the humans had spent years fortifying. In the asteroid belt, miners who had spent their lives working in the harsh environment now became soldiers. They knew these rocks better than anyone. They had turned their mining equipment into weapons and their processing stations into fortresses. As alien ships fled into the belt seeking cover, they found themselves in a maze where every turn could hide human forces. One Velkari cruiser tried to hide behind a large asteroid, powering down its systems to avoid detection. The mining crew stationed there waited patiently for 10 minutes, then launched a drilling torpedo, the kind they normally use to break apart asteroids for processing. The torpedo bored into the alien ship's hull and detonated inside, tearing the vessel apart from within. Another group of aliens tried to use a debris field as cover. They didn't know that the debris field had been carefully arranged by human salvage crews, with weapon platforms hidden among the wreckage. When the alien ships entered the field, the platforms activated, firing at point-blank range. None of the alien vessels made it through. Director Taeyang coordinated the pursuit from Earth, his screens showing the systematic destruction of the Velkari fleet. They're splitting up, he noted, trying to escape in different directions. Make sure we have coverage on all vectors. I don't want any ship reaching jump distance. Dr. Yunji was monitoring the alien communications, listening to their growing desperation. They're calling for help, she reported, broadcasting distress signals to the Dominion. But we're jamming their long-range communications. Nothing is getting through. Some of the alien ships tried to surrender. They powered down their weapons and broadcast surrender signals in multiple languages. Hayuk gave the order to accept their surrender, but only under strict conditions. The alien crews were to evacuate to escape pods and abandon their ships. Human boarding crews would then secure the vessels. Captain Minji escorted one such surrendering ship, her weapons locked on it the entire time. She watched as escape pods began launching, each one quickly recovered by human ships. The aliens inside would become prisoners of war, treated according to human conventions. It wasn't mercy exactly. It was calculated strategy. Some of these aliens would eventually be returned to their home worlds, carrying stories about how humans fought and what happened to those who attacked Earth. But not all aliens chose to surrender. Many fought to the death, their pride and tactical doctrine not allowing for the concept of defeat. These ships were destroyed methodically, hunted down by human forces that showed no mercy to those who showed no sense. The battle became a series of smaller engagements scattered throughout the inner solar system. Human forces worked in coordinated teams, using their superior knowledge of the terrain to corner and destroy enemy vessels. Fighters harried larger ships until capital vessels could arrive to finish them. Missile platforms caught fleeing cruisers in calculated ambushes. Railgun stations picked off stragglers with precise long-range fire. One Velkari battleship, the largest in their fleet, refused to surrender. It had taken heavy damage but was still dangerous, its weapons capable of destroying multiple human ships. The battleship's commander was broadcasting defiance, swearing that his ship would take as many humans with it as possible. Commander Hayek studied the battleship's position. It was trapped between Luna and Earth, unable to escape but still fighting. That ship is going to be a symbol, he decided. We need to show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten Earth. All lunar batteries concentrate fire on that battleship. I want it destroyed completely. 15 massive railguns fired simultaneously. The battleship's shields, already weakened from hours of combat, collapsed under the first volley. The second volley tore into its hull. The third volley broke the ship's spine. The battleship that had been the pride of the Velkari fleet came apart in a silent explosion, visible from Earth's surface, debris scattering across orbital space. The destruction of the flagship broke whatever remained of Velkari morale. Ships that had been fighting suddenly surrendered. Others tried desperate escape attempts that ended in their destruction. Within the next 3 hours, the Velkari invasion force effectively ceased to exist as an organized military unit. Minji landed her fighter on Luna, exhausted. She had been in combat for nearly 12 hours, longer than any training exercise had ever lasted. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline as she climbed out of the cockpit. Around her, other pilots were doing the same, their faces showing the strain of extended combat. Good work out there, said her squadron leader, approaching with tired steps. We lost 8 pilots from our group, but we held the line, 8 dead. Minji felt the weight of those losses. 8 people she had trained with, flown with, laughed with. The victory was real, but it had cost human lives. It always did. Director Taeyang compiled the casualty reports. 93 human ships destroyed, 412 pilots and crew killed, another 600 wounded. Set against the complete destruction of an alien invasion force, the numbers seemed small. But every number was a person, a life that had ended defending humanity's home. Dr. Yunji began interrogating the captured alien officers, trying to understand what had gone wrong from their perspective. The answers were enlightening. The Velkari had believed their own intelligence reports completely. They had assumed human weakness and never questioned their assumptions. They had no concept of strategic deception on the scale humanity had employed. Their military training had prepared them for straightforward warfare, not for an enemy that used its environment as a weapon. As the last Velkari ships were either destroyed or captured, Commander Hyuk allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The solar system was secure. Earth had survived. But he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew that humans could be attacked. The question was, what would they learn from the Velkari failure? That answer would determine how the next invasion would be planned, and Hayek was already thinking about how to prepare for it. Because he knew with absolute certainty that eventually someone else would try. The victory today was complete, but the war for humanity's survival would continue as long as humans expanded into the stars. For now, though, Earth was safe. The ambush had worked. The hunters had become the hunted, and the Velkari had learned too late that attacking humanity on its home ground was a fatal mistake. 3 days after the battle began, the solar system fell silent. The Velkari invasion force had been completely destroyed or captured. Of the 500 warships that had entered with such confidence, only 47 escaped, and those were so badly damaged they barely made it to jump distance. The rest were debris, drifting in the darkness as a warning to anyone who might follow. Commander Hayek stood on the lunar surface in his pressure suit, looking up at Earth. The planet hung in the black sky, beautiful and untouched. The battle had been fought in space, keeping the damage away from the homeworld. That had always been the plan. Fight them out here, where humans had every advantage rather than let them reach Earth's surface. Behind him, recovery crews were working to clear the orbital debris. It would take months, maybe years, to clean up all the wreckage. Some of it would be left as monuments, permanent reminders of what happened when someone tried to conquer Earth. Other pieces would be salvaged, the alien technology studied and understood. Captain Minji walked across the lunar surface to join him. She had barely slept in 3 days, but there was work to be done. The last of the escape pods have been recovered, she reported. We have about 7,000 alien prisoners. Dr. Yunji wants to start detailed interviews, try to understand their culture better. Good, Hayek replied. The more we understand them, the better we can predict what comes next. You think there will be more? I know there will be. The galaxy is full of civilizations that see humans as dangerous or valuable or both. This was just the first time someone had the courage to try to eliminate us. It won't be the last. But now everyone will know what happened here. They'll know what we're capable of when we fight on our own ground. Director Taiyang had already begun the next phase of the operation. He was carefully releasing footage of the battle, edited and selected to show exactly what he wanted the galaxy to see. Images of the ambush, videos of alien ships being destroyed, recordings of the Valkyrie fleet's complete destruction. All of it broadcast on every frequency, sent to every corner of known space. The message was clear. Earth could not be conquered by force. The solar system was a fortress that would destroy anyone who tried to attack it. Humanity might seem weak when spread across the stars, but in their home system they were unbeatable. Dr. Yunji sat across from a Valkyrie commander in a small interview room deep beneath Luna's surface. The alien was contained in a special cell that provided the atmosphere and pressure his species required. Through a translator they could communicate. Why did you attack us? Yunji asked, not for the first time. The alien's response was bitter. You spread too fast. You take what you want without asking. You are dangerous to the established order. The Dominion believed you needed to be stopped before you became too strong. And now? The alien was quiet for a long moment. Now we know we were wrong about your strength, but not wrong about you being dangerous. You turned your entire solar system into a trap. You deceived us completely. You killed thousands of our people. How is that not dangerous? Yunji considered the question carefully. We didn't attack you. We didn't invade your worlds. We defended our home when you came to destroy us. There's a difference between being dangerous and being aggressive. We're dangerous to those who threaten us. But we don't go looking for fights. Will you let us go? Return us to our people? Eventually, yes. We're not interested in holding prisoners forever. But you'll return with a message. You'll tell the Dominion and anyone else who will listen what happened here. You'll explain that Earth cannot be conquered, that attacking humanity in the Sol system is suicide. The alien made a sound that the translator rendered as bitter laughter. That message has already been sent. The ships that escaped are broadcasting their failure to anyone who will listen. The galaxy will know what happened here, and the galaxy did learn. The footage of the battle spread like wildfire through alien communication networks. Civilizations that had been considering human expansion with suspicion now looked at it with fear. The humans had revealed capabilities no one had suspected. Their deception had been perfect. Their execution had been flawless. They had destroyed a fleet that was supposed to be overwhelming. Military analysts across a dozen species studied the battle, trying to understand what had gone wrong for the Valkyrie. The answers were disturbing. The humans had prepared for this attack for years, maybe decades. They had built their defenses in secret while appearing weak. They had used their home territory as a weapon. Most troubling of all, they had shown the ability to coordinate thousands of individual units in perfect synchronization, something most species' military doctrines said was impossible. In the council chambers where the invasion had been planned, the surviving members of the Dominion gathered to discuss their failure. They argued for hours about what to do next. Some wanted to gather a larger fleet and try again. Others suggested accepting defeat and leaving humanity alone. Still others proposed diplomatic solutions, trying to contain human expansion through treaties rather than force. Commander Hayek received reports of these discussions through intelligence channels that Earth had carefully maintained. He read them with interest but not surprise. They're afraid now, he observed to his staff. Good. Fear will keep them cautious. But we can't rely on fear alone. We need to be ready for whatever they try next. Captain Minji had been promoted and given command of an entire wing of fighters. She was overseeing the expansion of Earth's defensive capabilities, using lessons learned from the battle. We got lucky, she told her pilots during a training session. They came at us exactly the way we predicted. The next enemy might be smarter. They might adapt to our tactics. We need to always be innovating, always preparing for threats we haven't imagined yet. The solar system began to return to normal life, but it was a new normal, Civilians who had huddled in bunkers emerged to find their world had survived. Children asked their parents about the battle, about the aliens, about why anyone would want to hurt Earth. The answers were complicated, but one thing was clear. Humanity had proven it could defend itself. Director Taeyang compiled his final report, a document that would influence Earth's strategy for decades to come. In it, he outlined the principles that had led to victory. First, know your territory better than your enemy ever could. Second, use deception to make your enemy's strengths into weaknesses. Third, coordinate perfectly and strike with overwhelming force at the decisive moment. Fourth, never give your enemy a fair fight. Always stack the odds in your favor. But the most important lesson was simpler. Humans were most dangerous when they were defending their home. The emotional attachment to Earth, to Luna, to Mars, to every rock and ice ball in the solar system. That wasn't a weakness as the Valkyrie had believed. It was a source of strength. Every human in the solar system had fought not for abstract principles or military glory, but for their home. And that made all the difference. Dr. Yoonji concluded her interviews and compiled a psychological profile of the Valkyrie and the other species in the Dominion. Her findings were fascinating. Most alien civilizations had rigid social structures and predictable decision-making processes. They valued stability and tradition. Humans, by contrast, were chaotic and adaptable. They could cooperate in large numbers but also act independently. They could follow detailed plans but also improvise when those plans failed. This flexibility, which aliens saw as weakness, was actually humanity's greatest military advantage. As weeks passed, the captured aliens were prepared for return to their home worlds. They would go back in human ships, another demonstration of Earth's capability. The ships would drop them at neutral locations and leave immediately, making no threats but also showing no fear. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere if it chose to, but it chose restraint. Commander Hyuk retired from active duty 6 months after the battle, his mission accomplished. He had spent his entire career preparing for an attack that might never come, and when it did come, his preparations had saved humanity. Now younger officers would take over, building on what he had created, preparing for the next threat. But before he left, he stood one more time on the lunar surface and looked at Earth. The planet was safe, protected not by walls or force fields, but by the simple fact that it was humanity's home, and humans would defend their home with everything they had. Any enemy that came to the Sol system would face not just weapons and ships, but the accumulated determination of an entire species fighting on ground. They knew better than anyone else could ever know it. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth could not be conquered. Humanity could not be easily destroyed. They were too smart, too adaptable, too willing to use unconventional methods. The Valkyrie had planned humanity's end, but they had walked straight into Earth's ambush, and the entire galaxy had watched them die. Now humanity could return to exploring the stars, expanding its colonies, meeting new species. But everyone would know from this day forward that attacking Earth was not an option. The solar system was a fortress, and humanity would defend it to the last breath. That was the message sent to the stars, written in the wreckage of 500 warships and the blood of those who had underestimated human determination.